Enterprise Management 360.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Tech Chat. I'm your host for today, Ross Hurley, and today we're going to be talking to Boris Paillard of Wagon. But before we crack on, I thought it wise to let you know about an event called Data Champions Online happening between March 23rd and March 25th. This event is hosted by Corinium, a company that you probably know for their conferences and educational content and data, and it will be delivering bite-sized, easy-to-understand content on data and analytics without skipping any of the important details. Amongst their 12 guest speakers are CDO of Bitly and CDO of Zora, just to name a few, and they will be educating you in the world of data. Okay, Boris, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me today.
Lovely. So Boris, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO and the co-founder of a company called Wagon. It's a coding school. We launched our first class like 7 years ago in Paris in 2014. And since then, we've scaled our coding bootcamps all around the world in 40 cities and in all continents. Originally, I'm an engineer. I worked 3 years in financial markets, and I decided to learn to change career at this moment and learn to code on my own. And by doing that, I discovered the gap there was between higher education and the way you're teaching computer science in my master's degree and what I was actually learning by self-learning coding. And that's why I decided to launch my company to teach web development and data science in a new way. And that's how it started back in the day in 2014.
I guess that's what they say as well. People learn better from experience a lot of the time. And I remember reading as well, Wagon has even offices in Shanghai now and all across the world. So I was pretty impressed to learn about that. So I want to start with a little bit of research from Wagon from this year, which said that 64% of your data science course alumni stated that they chose to complete your course because of the huge demand of data skills in 2021. So why is there such a huge demand for data skills?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because like the hype around data science, of course, is not new, and we've been speaking about these topics for a while now. But I think that there is a real momentum. So obviously, every year there is someone saying there is a momentum, but I think that this year is especially true. And the reason behind is there are two elements to it. The first is, of course, companies are using more and more software in all the different departments, from the marketing to the product to the customer support, and even internally for their finance, their operations, and so on. So this, of course, is creating a lot of data. But the kind of news on top of that is that they've really started to actually consolidate this data, to centralize it, and to make it usable. And this is very important because if you are not mapping your data, for instance, in terms of marketing on your customer journey, for instance, if you're not gathering the right data on your customer on all the life cycle, well, you don't have a database that really allows you to make the most use out of data. And companies have really made huge progress into that. So we used to say that they were digitized and creating more data, but also now this data is more consolidated and centralized, which creates basically an exploding need and use cases for actually using data skills to make the most out of this data. And the second element that comes with that is the maturity of data science in terms of tools. Basically, either you were an analyst using Excel with like not a lot of technical skills, or you needed a lot of engineering, IT, or mathematics skills to actually be able to do things with data. And nowadays, you can already, like in most teams, so not only in data teams, but in finance departments, marketing departments, product departments, you can actually do a lot. And so it has become more accessible to a wider audience. And this year, especially 2021, on top of that, there are new libraries that allows you to apply very advanced machine learning model without having a PhD in mathematics. So to summarize, all this makes the data skills accessible not only to the experts, but to many more people within the company.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm wondering then, why does this huge historical data skills gap exist?
The pace of education is not following the pace of technology. And so in some way, when you graduate from a school, you don't have all the skills to actually bring value to a company. And that's why there are companies like ourselves that do complementary boot camps to upskill graduates to actually find these positions. The other reason, like to actually get these data skills, either you hire or you train your teams. But similarly, you can't train your team at a pace that's sufficient to cope with like your growing needs. We've done lots of training for upskilling teams in banks like Société Générale, BNP Paribas, like to upskill data analysts there. But of course, it's a trade-off companies to train their team. They also need people to do their everyday jobs. So they can't really sometimes put enough effort into the training of their teams to keep up with their needs, internal needs in terms of data skills. So I would say the pace of traditional higher education and the pace of corporate training does not quite follow the pace of technology and to which the needs are growing, especially in terms of data.
Yeah, I really like the way you approach that as well. I mean, it's about viewing it holistically, isn't it? It's not about why can't my employees harness their data properly. It's like, let's look at the education side of it. Let's see where there's a little bit of skills lacking and why that is the case. And I think you're completely right there. So it looks like companies are desperate to try and close this gap. And it looks like closing this gap is in everyone's interest. So what is Wagon doing to help close the gap?
So that's basically our core mission, to close this gap, because that's why we are building curriculum. It's to actually enable people to quickly, in 2 months, learn data science and find a position within a company as a data analyst, as a data engineer, as a data scientist. So that's exactly what we are doing, is actually provide this program that allow people to get these skills and then join the company. So what we're doing concretely is like on the education, on the hiring front, we are actually training graduates to provide, to solve the talent shortage and to provide more people with the right data skills to companies for hiring them. And on the corporate upskilling part, we are developing bespoke training for upskilling data scientists for IKEA or data analysts for banks, or we have a lot of corporate partners. We build training for them, but we try to deliver this training using digital platforms so that it's more scalable than on-site traditional session. So, and I'm sure you will see lots of trend in the training space because there are lots of things going on, and COVID has accelerated this phenomenon because all the companies, they had to switch all their in-person training to remote, and they realized that it's actually efficient. And so you will see more and more companies actually scaling live teaching courses.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. It's something you were saying earlier as well. Do you want the company to be providing all of this training in-house, or would it be better to hire someone like Wagon, who's an expert in the field, to not waste the resources, immediately kind of bring that training into their employees? And I think it seems like Wagon's really kind of spearheading this movement right now, and it's soon to be fixing the data gap. So, Boris, I wanted to just say thank you for coming on today's episode. It was really great to speak with you.
Yeah, it was a very interesting talk. Thank you for that.